go to the semifinals here. Starting the top four, we've got Lexi, Evan Herndon, and Jeremy on Katsu. This is gonna be a fast and furious one, I think.
Indeed, we've seen this matchup played quite a few times on stream at this point in the last several months. Evan just coming off the back of a finish at US Nationals very recently, also playing Lexi, made a top 8 appearance there. And Jeremy repping Katsu. Do you guys know if Jeremy's local to this area? I think so.
I believe so.
Yeah, he is. So got a local player. I believe our other top 4 match is a Dromai versus Icelander. So 4 different heroes making it into the top 4. We had a pretty diverse top 8 to begin with.
Yeah.
Only duplicate hero was Dromai. We will see. I think in the Dromai Icelander matchup, it depends a lot on their deck list, who's favored. I know the Icelander has, I believe, 9 poppers, which is somewhat above average. It's like on the upper end of what you see from Icelander. And I have no clue about how many blues the Dromai list is running or what their deck looks like.
Yeah, we haven't seen that deck on the stream at all today, actually. So we're a little bit in the dark as well, but we'll find out how that one wraps up. And that really could go either way. That's one of those matchups that is very much play dependent and, like you said, deck content dependent. This matchup, however, is also going to be really interesting to see how it unfolds and who can really establish the tempo, and if there's some amount of disruption that can be provided by Evan onto the side of Katsu, because stopping them with possibly some incidental frostbites can really do a lot of extra work against a Katsu who wants to be very resource hungry.
Yeah, I think Evan has several ice cards in the list. The normal Winter's Bite, as well as some red ice quakes and blue cold snaps at least. So lots of ways to give frostbites and disrupt. Have we seen this Katsu deck on stream at all yet today?
I think we saw Katsu play in round 6 or 7. Maybe it was round 7 against the Levia. I believe that was actually the round that we saw open up, and Jeremy punched his ticket into the top 8.
Okay, nice. Yeah, this matchup is like very interesting. There's more blocking involved than I think the average aggro mirror, and it comes down to, part of it is what equipment the Lexi presents. Hornet Sting has become a lot more standard, so we'll probably see that from Evan's side. And then there's a debate between playing Tunic or Trench. Obviously, Tunic is very good, gives you a resource every couple turns. Versus Trench, which can be really helpful if you get Warmongered. If you don't have snaps and you don't have Trench and they play Warmongers against you and you have a face down arsenal, it's just stuck there. You can't Lexi ability. You potentially just can't do anything with your turn, assuming it's like an arrow without go again. So I know some Lexi players play Trench in the matchup just to be able to double arsenal more easily off of codexes and things, and also just to have that security versus Warmongers. But there's also the debate of Snapdragon Scalers versus maybe Perch Grapplers to help with breakpoints, and which one of those you play kind of also influences the chess piece, because if you have snaps, then that gives you a little bit more
wiggle room into a variety of things, actually, but
including Warmongers. Yeah,
big one is the consideration of Warmongers. But as we see these players shuffling up and eventually playing, the sleeve lurks yet again at the top of the screen. But as we see both players begin the process of cutting and shuffling their opponent's deck, and then moving on to the reveal on the equipment, we're going to start to get some answers as to how both of these players want to approach this matchup and how much respect they're giving to each other. It looks like we do see the Hornet Sting and the Perch Grapplers. I think the Perch Grapplers I very much prefer, just because I know that Katsus can just randomly high roll you out of existence, and if you have the correct cards to block that out, you feel a lot more comfortable. Is that card like sleeved 4 times at the very top there?
Wait, which one?
Oh no, it's the cold foil Mask of Momentum that has a looks like it has a little team bag on it.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah. So Jeremy is the higher seed here by 1 place, so we'll get to choose whether he wants to go first or second, which it sounds like maybe is what they're talking about right now. Players are now drawing up, diving into it. So yeah, Perch Grapplers from Evan's side, I like that as well. It's nice to stop Mask Momentum breakpoints. Maybe just put it in front of a Surging Strike if you want to stop the Katsu trigger.
Yeah.
Lots of ways you can utilize it, but like we mentioned, there's no Trench and no snaps from Evan's side, so completely vulnerable to Warmongers if he does end up with face down arrows and such without go again.
Yes, Mara Ferris, I do know a thing or two about sleeving cards. I have done that once or twice. That is why it piqued my interest. And look at the wonderful little ponder token just lurking there. Is that Dagon?
That is Dagon.
That's Dagon White.
This is our second funny token on the screen in the first 5 minutes.
This is how you know it's going to be a great game.
Indeed. I got handed one of those, the token we saw at the start earlier today. It's in my backpack right now. Yeah, this one right here we have it in front of us.
That's Flake's favorite. He actively enjoys bringing that places and
Hate that thing so much.
leaving up cards.
So it looks like Evan was going first, ticked the tunic up, went ahead and played Codex of Frailty just to grab that Frailty token. Also get one more look at a potential arsenal with the Ponder, but really just saying, you're a Kodachi deck. I don't want those things to hit me. Make it harder for you to use your resources, less likely that you're going to get a mask trigger, and then setting up the double arsenal, which is exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, playing into a 6-card hand and basically saying that your opponent can't do half of their strategy is a solid start on turn 0, and not giving them the chance to basically free mulligan their hand as well. And that's a nice little trap played on top. The tar pit trap comes across on the swing here.
Indeed, this card is very strong versus Katsu. Not only does it stop the Katsu trigger on this Descendant Gust Wave, it says the next time an attack action card hits, effects don't trigger. So whatever Jeremy plays right after this is already blanked. That Bonds has no on hit, which I suppose
Doesn't matter because it's on play in this scenario, right?
Yeah, it would just be, again, the Katsu trigger is now blanked for the Bonds.
Indeed, and the 4 damage is going to come across, and that does allow Jeremy the ability to place the Arsenal down. Nothing in the graveyard to trigger off of the Bonds, so the Bonds just ends up being just a 0 for 4 with a casual go again, and the beautiful signed Premeditate coming across.
3 cards, 7 from Jeremy. We see the Frailty token doing a little work, making his turn a little less powerful. From Evan's side, we have Premeditate from Arsenal, using our first Voltaire use to give Heatseeker go again. Coming in for 8. On hit, you get a Ponder and the Heatseeker effect. So this is interesting. It's very likely that Premeditate's going to connect no matter what this turn, so you can't stop the Ponder. And because Evan does not have Snaps, or it also does not have Trench, it's a lot harder to utilize 2 random cards off the top, both going into Arsenal at end of turn. So Jeremy might be thinking this Heatseeker is less relevant than normal because there is a Ponder token. It's possible. There's always the high roll option of, Evan hits an arrow and then draws a Rain Razors or some other pump. But most of the time, if it's just 2 non-go-again arrows, only one of those effects actually matters.
Yeah.
And I believe there's an Endless Arrow face up in Arsenal, which is another interesting piece of this puzzle. Normally that's a full card on hit, but again, assuming that the Ponder connects at some point, and especially if the Heatseeker also does, if the turn ends with Endless without go again, it doesn't actually matter that much because Evan's already going to be able to set up Arsenal. It's just like a card quality thing of having Endless in your hand, but it's not extra cards.
And it also just ends up kind of becoming a little bit of a muck-up in the hand as well, as you are already forcing multiple cards across and into your hand. So you end up just basically deciding between everything that your Ponder is drawing you off of and that Endless Arrow as to what goes in the arsenal alongside with whatever you might get in with the Heatseeker. God, I love that Ponder token. I think that's great.
That is great. So we have the 8 connects, Ponder is created, Heatseeker will flip at the end of the turn. Using that last resource and Voltaire use to give +1 to Bolt and Shot, coming in for a clean 4, and then we'll follow up with the Endless Arrow to end. And Evan will get, we'll have to see, with Endless Arrow and a Ponder token and a Heatseeker, can Evan flip into something lucky that lets him double Arsenal this turn?
Sending the Endless Arrow here, threatening to recur itself back into the hand, and Jeremy looks like he's giving the respect that perhaps the card deserves, possibly sending this plus Breaking Scales as a potential cover-up for the Endless Arrow.
Looks like Jeremy is reading Hornet Sting there. Basically just blocks a 1 break point, and when it does, it reveals the top card of your deck. If it's an arrow, your opponent takes a damage, otherwise goes straight to the bottom.
This is a great block, too, because Flusterfist Red is a card you definitely want in your graveyard because it gives you the capability of banishing it on a Bond's turn.
And
so that you can go grab one from your deck and then play that out as a nice little 0-4 sort of turn ender.
Absolutely. What a Heatseeker flip from Evan. We got a 3 of a kind, so that allows for an easy second Arsenal. That's exactly what you want to see.
3 of a kind, the name of the 3 of ours next podcast.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. No further comment.
No,
All right, we are on.
It's the best deck. It's the best deck. There it is. Sending the Descendant Gust Wave to start the turn off is the guaranteed go again. Now, this does give us the Katsu trigger available to us to go and fetch, and means that we can go and basically pick whatever we want to grab with combo, getting rid of a double strike, which could have been a card that we chose to play, but instead we are very comfortable getting rid of that so that we can go get the Bonds of Ancestry, which we did prior to this turn, set up nicely for it to go and search for that Fluster Fist, which is just a very common line that we see in Katsus and provides a lot of damage.
That is right. That is exactly what it looks like he's doing here. It looks like maybe Jeremy has a pretty resource light hand. He popped that Heart and Cross Strap just to be able to play the Gust Wave for free. So I think he doesn't have a blue to be able to pay 1 for it. Going to fetch what I have to imagine is going to be another red Fluster Fist, and then coming in for 4 go again.
Yep, we're banishing off of the Bonds to go and find Fluster Fist, be able to play that down. Send that across on over. Now, you don't have to play this right now. You could follow this up with the Arsenal card or follow it up with the card from hand. But this is available to basically end your turn with because it does not have go again at this current juncture. You could Breeze Rider Boots. We did see Jeremy on the in the final game of Swiss have an absolutely absurd turn where he Breeze Rider Boots and played about 7 different combo cards on that turn. 6 to 7 combo cards. And took up the entire board and pushed an insane amount of damage. But 100 wins is going to be the name of the game, coming from Arsenal. And it looks like we're going to end it off with Fluster Fist.
Evan is blocking that out, blocking a 3 block on a 2 just to stop the Mask Momentum on hit.
Exactly.
Speaking of popping your boots, I actually had a turn earlier today with Azalea where I popped Perch Grapplers, which is pretty rare. Usually that's just a blocking equipment. It was fun.
Yeah, we actually saw. Did we see a Perch Grapplers pop on? No, it was just the Breeze Rider Boots that we saw.
We are back over to Evan's turn now, likely going to fire off that 3 of a kind. Looks like, okay, so starting with some non-attacks, this is a blue Winter's Bite, and then I believe there's also a Premeditate in Evan's hand, which these things can be really nice when you have 3 of a kind and you want to try to keep your whole hand. They allow you to play some non-arrow cards out so that you are able to basically use all your cards and not, like, often if you have just 3 of a kind and a handful of arrows, you have to block with a couple of them to make sure that you don't end up with too many cards after you draw 3, but this is a great way to kind of stay on the offensive and still use your whole hand with 3 oak.
Flipping into the reveal of the Searing Shot. Searing Shot's a great little 0 for 4. That's really a 0 for 5 when you think about it. And going to fire off Remorseless with go again. This is buffed up by the Premeditate, and this does carry over the Ponder Run, if you will, hit on hit effect that is applied basically to the end of the turn, or if it is succeeded in hitting.
Yeah, we're really seeing the power of Premeditate in this game. Assuming that last card is an arrow in Evan's hand, we're just going to likely get another free Arsenal off of the Ponder. 2 Premeditates have both basically been 3 damage plus a card in this game. That is a blue Searing Shot. It is an arrow. If it connects, it's going to be 3 damage, and of course that Fateful Ponder will be created. And then likely end it with that red Searing for 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, having a blue that essentially goes for 3 feels fantastic when you don't have to pay for it. That is a beautiful card in this deck, and Searing Shot, an innocuous little card. It was one of the first Ranger cards revealed in the game when revealed in Arcane Rising.
Nice, yeah.
It was along with the bow, I believe it was some of the first Ranger cards that were actually spoiled back when Arcane Rising was coming out.
Death Dealer, a very strong weapon to this day. It looks like Jeremy just completely blocked out. Now we are back over to Evan's turn. Coming in with that Endless Arrow, Jeremy's like, we're not even going to try to block this. Taking the 4, Evan gets it back. That is a blue Infecting Shot face up in Arsenal, so threatens a Blood Rot, can be cleanly blocked with 1 card, but otherwise is going to do 2 extra damage on hit.
Yeah, a nice little 1 for 5 when you think about it that way too. Bolt and Shot here threatening a lot of extra possibilities because if this is allowed to hit, we get to reload, but not on this case because we do have the blue Infecting Shot there. So we're gonna get that blue Infecting Shot there, fire it on over, and looks like we have that Endless Arrow plus a Frostlock that we have in hand as well.
Jeremy is just saying, send me the bill, going all the way down to 8, taking that Blood Rot, so it puts him at an effective 6, but keeping a 5-card hand. He is down significantly here, but I do see an Art of War in that hand, so let's see if he can turn the tides of this game.
He says he's here for a good time, but not a long time, as he pitches Dishonor to play the Art of War, banish, draw 2, get the +1 across, and yeah, on a very kind of poor overall hand with a blue dishonor, an art of war, and what looks like a ancestral empowerment. So it depends on what's in the arsenal for real damage to actually come across here. We do have there is the ancestral empowerment. We do have the capability of going Kodachi, which is a very good first two attack salvo because it sets up the possible mask draw if our opponent lets it hit.
That is right. Evan's going down to 25 here. As Evan, you maybe have to just be thinking that you're likely going to have to let Mask hit on this turn. Depends how well your hand blocks. Looks like maybe not. Evan's going to block out this Kodachi with the Hornet Sting. The reason for this is basically just resetting the Mask, saying in order to threaten it again, you have to come up with 3 new chain links.
Jeremy has a really good answer in response, though, after he allows this one to be blocked. He's going to be able to double strike, and that's going to create basically just 2 more chain links and 2 more pseudo Kodachis, except this time they are both buffed by the Art of War. And it's going to allow for, a nice little play around. Now, choosing now to use Ancestral Empowerment instead of on sort of a gotcha moment where you might be able to play out and connect and draw off of the Mask of Momentum.
He does have a Katsu trigger on this, so maybe just wants more information about what his hand's going to end up looking like to resolve that. Oh, and that is another...
Oh, I think there was a bit of a stumble there, thinking that the 100 wins was in the arsenal, instead showing that it was another Ancestral Empowerment. That's a bit of a big thing.
So coming in for 4 here. What is Mara saying?
Apparently Mara Ferris says her boyfriend walked in and says, "Who's that talking? He sounds like George Lucas." I don't know how to take that. I guess that's a good thing, but...
It is a good thing, though you are definitely not George Lucas.
That is accurate. I mean, you are not wrong.
I am not wrong.
On ending off with the Warmonger's Diplomacy, we drew off of the Art of War.
We talked about this at the start of the match. This could be a huge tide turner. If that card in Evan's arsenal is... We know it's the Endless Arrow, right?
Yes, it's either the Endless Arrow or the Frostlock.
Oh, yeah. So we know that it's going to completely stuff the turn. Evan will likely choose War and still be able to fire that off. But that'll be the only action he can take.
Both players choosing War. I would assume this is not a friendly game. We're not playing around the table where we can block for each other, and Chivalry is indeed dead at this moment as we draw up on Jeremy's side into a 5-card hand, essentially, and that's the Endless Arrow. Can be coming from the arsenal. Unfortunately, we don't have any other options right there.
The good news for Evan is it looks like he has at least some Winter's Bites in his hand, so he will be able to set up a double arsenal, just loading something with Voltaire and then utilizing New Horizon to set. I think we maybe have a Winter's Bite and a Cold Snap, so he can choose whichever one of those he wants. Coming in for 4.
Giving up the Mask here to stop the recursion on the Endless Arrow and keep the 5-card hand. That's an interesting choice. When your opponent's at 17, I mean, you're definitely meaning that you're not giving up any cards, and so you might just have pure gas, and you might just need to be able to play out at the exact right, functionality, if you will.
Yeah, and Evan is just double loading like we said.
Yep.
Going back to Jeremy's turn, and even though that Warmonger's was nice, made Evan lose several cards, there is still a massive life deficit to make up.
Looks like we have a Winds of Eternity, which is a blue, which gives us the capability of swinging Kodachis. The Kodachis are far less important now that we don't have Mask on board to set up Mask triggers, but we also have what looks like a Surging Strike. It looks like a Surging Strike red, which is a 2 for 5 that we can send some serious damage with and possibly get some Katsu triggers rolling if this is allowed to connect. And we can assume it probably will, unless Evan is playing very conservatively and giving him a card plus the Perch Grapplers here. And even if he did that, it looks like it wouldn't have mattered because Art of War is going to come down and give a +1 buff across the board and banish draw 2 here.
Some fateful draws off the top. Looks like a Be Like Water. I think that might be a red Gust Wave. Is that what? There's a CNC in the hand. Are those?
It's playing into the CNC, which I think is a very, very smart overall play. If you can push your opponent down far enough to, and there's the Katsu trigger. I think this is also very smart, being able to go and get like a Bonds of Ancestry to maybe set up even larger of a turn and possibly even getting a combo card here so you can pop the Perch Grapplers and go super wide. And then end with the CNC after your opponent's made some value blocks so that they have to lose cards in Arsenal. This could be a huge blowout turn if Evan isn't sniffing out the possibility of a CNC.
So we grabbed a yellow bonds. I guess he must be out of red bonds, unfortunately. Coming in for another 6 because +2 because Surging Strike was just played and 1 from Art of War. Evan is at 11, so that life total gap is being closed. We're entering the realm of threatening lethal.
Well, he grabbed the yellow bonds, so this is going to be able to follow it up for free.
Going all the way down to 5. And
no resources floating, so no capability of playing that CNC. And this does allow, unfortunately, I don't think he can go and fetch that red Flusterfist. I think he drew and played perhaps the last one. So I don't think that's available, but this is a full cover here. Or maybe he's considering not. I guess we have to finish resolving the bonds, of course, so that you can see what could possibly be coming down the pipeline after this.
indeed, it's easy to forget that Mask of Momentum is no longer in play, but thankfully for Evan, that is no longer threatening draws. So you don't have to worry about that. You just have to make sure you're staying alive. He's down to 5, so just...
He did have the third red Flusterfist, so that was the interesting thing. He pitched it earlier, so he had it in circulation for exactly a turn like this, with the bonds, being able to go and fetch it by banishing a blue and going and getting the red, which means you can send another 4 after this. And that's exactly what we're going to see. He's going to send the 4 there and see if Evan wants to go down to 1. And that would be a very dangerous thing because then you're just breaking scales to win the game. So going to have to respect the damage here. And that gives Jeremy the capability of arsenaling a CNC.
Life totals are neck and neck now. Evan has 2 cards in arsenal plus 1 in hand. Perhaps still a tiny bit ahead here, but Jeremy has dealt a lot of damage and closed that gap.
Four-card plus arsenal hand, but he's going to be able to start by giving a frostbite. We talked about it at the outset of this game that being able to give an incidental frostbite here and there to a Katsu can do way more work than you would think into a variety of other heroes. And the Winter's Bite also taxing as well is a very, very powerful play. And this is a must-block card that we have to be able to try and cover up. And if we don't have the capability of covering it up, it's just going to eat away at our life total in the Searing Shot, which does have go again, I believe.
The Endless Arrow is pretty rough at the end as well, threatening to just go back in arsenal and be a persistent threat for next turn. Jeremy, at the bare minimum, has to give Evan 2 3-blocks on this turn, and doing that would put him all the way down to 1 and leave Evan with the Endless Arrow. He does not have any D-reacts in hand, and even if he did, he would have had to pitch a blue to be able to play them through that Frostbite. So lots of choices to make on Jeremy's side. I think he's considering a 2-card block here, a 3-block plus a 2-block to cover up the Searing Shot and the extra damage.
I think it's an absolute must to cover here. You may have to just give the 1 card and call it a day there, and then pass on over and hope that they can't put together something even crazier. But this is Lexi that we're talking about, and Lexi can do some just incredible things. So drawing up on your own turn is Jeremy, and Evan with 4 cards plus an arsenaled Endless Arrow is just one possible turn away from pushing over the top of a very aggressive and very successful Katsu player.
That is right. Another Endless Arrow coming in for 4 go again. Jeremy is at 3. It's looking very grim for him here. I think one of his ways back into this game might be Warmongers. If he's able to block out enough, find one of those and fire it off. That is about the only...
The Rain Razors, though. That is a dangerous, dangerous card because that means that we are now pushing 3 over the top to the 3 that we blocked. And gonna defensive Art of War to put him to 1, banish, draw 2. It's gonna give your attack action cards or your action cards plus 1 defense this turn.
As his only option. So yep, going down to 1, the Endless Arrow goes back to hand. What did Jeremy draw off the top? Looks like a 2-block and I think another 2-block. So not gonna be able to stop all this damage.
He's got a 3-block in hand, so that does go up to 4, and then the 2-block does go up to 3, so this covers 7. But that should do it right there.